All right, everyone, we start off today talking about a dangerous strategic meandering from some parts of the GOP. It's not so much an actual mainline proposal as it is the insinuation by people like McConnell, Cruz, Blackburn, etc., that maybe kind of sort of will have a debate in the future if Roe v. Wade ends. The problem is this: there's no political climate right now for the kind of compromise that you would inevitably need to have a federal level restriction of, or legalization of, for that matter, abortion. And you'll see those dichotomous sides. The Democrats, if they have any legislative capabilities whatsoever, will attempt to push effectively blue state abortion policies off on the federal level, causing another SCOTUS case, potentially, by the way. On the flip side, especially the evangelical side of Republicans, because their constituents will support them in this, will probably push for a much harder cap on abortion. That is, even if abortion is not something that they attempt to make illegal federally, that they would have a pretty hard cap, like a 6-week limit, like a Texas law sort of thing. A compromise that the majority of the population can get behind is nowhere to be seen. The fact is that the Republicans have undercut any possibility of that because they've given the Democrats a million sound clips of them saying that the reason Roe v. Wade is a problem is because it takes away the state's rights, that the 10th Amendment shows that the state should handle the issue. Well, if you want to argue that the states have generally latitude to handle the issue, you do have a patchwork of states. Some have no real restrictions, some have a 20-week limit, some have an 8-week limit now, some have a 12-week limit. There are exceptions for rape, incest, etc. It's all over the place when you look at state-level abortion regulation and lack thereof. So when I see some people in the GOP trying to overstretch, trying to do what the Democrats have done, much to their own party's disaster, I sit there awestruck. Normally Republicans don't attempt to do that. Now, is there a threat that mainline Republicans from competitive districts are going to say, yeah, I think that we should just ban all abortion, even if they're in a state where the vast public supports like a 9-week limit or something like that, something that up until now has been considered a relatively conservative position. And instead of dealing with it on the state's level and letting the people of the states hammer it out, turning it back into a moral issue. The problem is that the Republicans pivoted away from the moral issue argument, generally speaking, other than, again, the hardline evangelicals, into the states' rights line. The fact is that when Roe v. Wade is repealed, they say, okay, the Constitution's been restored. Now the states can decide. Now let's pressure the states from the federal level. The problem is this, for both parties. The majority of the public wants abortion to remain legal, but the majority of the public also wants limitations on that legality. You would have to have something roughly in the middle of the states that effectively want to quasi-ban abortion and the states that want it to be virtually unregulated. In a hyper-partisan climate like we've got right now, there is no way to reconcile that. The votes aren't there in the House and the Senate. Nobody's likely to have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate after the midterms. The Republicans will probably take the Senate, but it won't be by that margin that they need. In the House, the Republicans will sweep that. They might have a complete supermajority there. The problem is that the Senate exists, and of course, Joe Biden exists. So any attempt would fail anyway, because even if you were to deal with someone like Manchin, maybe one of the more reasonable Democrats, to try to get a negotiated deal, it'll be blocked by the far left, or it'll be blocked by the far right anyway. And in the case of a compromise, both of them may fly the coop. The neoliberal core may vote for it and still fall short of the number of votes in the Senate that they need to pass something through. It would essentially be snatching defeat from the jaws of victory for the GOP, especially if they bring that up before midterms. Right now, there has been a failure of the left to energize, I think, the liberal voting base in general over this issue. The economy is supreme, number one, and in diplomatic and border crisis and things like that. So while it's a major issue, it's not necessarily the number one issue for the vast majority of the public. I think that's the case for even most Democrats. So right now, the end of Roe v. Wade, which is impending, we're not sure when that decision will come through, it could be a couple months from now or something, has not energized them. The GOP is still way out ahead and has no problem, and has won effectively on pretty much every other issue. Right now you have a very weak asterisk president named Biden, who, he doesn't even make many public appearances. When he does, he makes mistakes. You have effectively an absentee vice president who's somehow worse. You have a dysfunctional cabinet, a dysfunctional economy that's on the precipice of actually collapsing to depression-like conditions. And the GOP can look at this situation and say, well, we're kind of busy right now. I think that we'll put the social issues on the back burner. Roe v. Wade ended. It's a states' rights issue. Wash their hands of it. What I expect to see from some people in this video is complaining about me saying, well, it sticks. You're always saying the Republicans hold back too much. No, they should definitely not be holding back on the issues that they've won on. Education, crime, the border, the economy, Ukraine arguably. All of these other issues, they're on top. And the populists, like the MAGA crowd, they're the ones benefiting from it. It's the Vances and the Buds that are winning right now. Trump will probably get 3 out of 3 in his endorsed Senate primaries. And of course, Dr. Oz, I wouldn't vote for him myself, but it's a Trump-endorsed person, so probably does win. Anyway, when we look at the situation for what it really is, the GOP can go all in on those issues. It should also be going all in, and by the way, on guns and certain other side issues as well, attended to things like crime. That would be good. And bringing back the ultra-MAGA spirit of populism as opposed to letting, people like McConnell waddle their way through the Senate and be boring, I think would be a good idea. The problem is that some Republicans are attempting to convert what they argued for decades was a states' rights issue and convert it into a moralism issue. The problem is, again, more people in the public want unrestricted abortion than banned abortion, and the bulk of people want it regulated and rare, but they don't want it banned. The problem is that a 6-week limit is not going to be palatable, I think, even in swing states. For what it's worth, even in the swing states, you'd have some moderate proposal that's between maybe the 6-9 week ban thing and the it's available on request, taxpayer subsidized at any point up until birth Northam side. The fact is that the left already screwed the pooch on abortion. The reason why this is all happening in the first place is because of people like Northam pushing the concept of abortions after 20 weeks being perfectly fine with them for elective purposes. The majority of the population doesn't support that. They support a limit that's before that. I think the general consensus seems to be 12 weeks or something like that. That seems to be the median opinion within the population. They want it legal, but they want controls on it. So when I see people who are in support of a 6-week ban saying, hey, maybe we'll have a federal level debate on what we call the states' rights issue for so long, because the evangelical side of the Republican Party is dead, basically. They've gone bye-bye. The Christianity side of it has been wrapped up with MAGA. And many of them are not gung-ho about this issue. For strategic purposes, think what you will. And by the way, when I'm making this video, I'll say another thing in my defense that I'll have to make to some of my subscribers. You don't have to like the legality of abortion or the fact that it exists, but you do have to take the pulse of the public if you want to have a properly functioning constitutional republic that's comprised of states that have supremacy. And the issue has been handed to the states. What the fuck would you want more federal regulation? Federal government can't manage anything, and the effort would fail anyway. It's again, you'd be giving the Democrats votes and you would fail anyway. So when you say, well, yes, but if it saves one baby, it's okay. That's fine if you believe that, but the effort's not going to work. You'd be better off doing what the MAGA Republicans have done and working at the local and state level to build support for further restrictions if you want that. Yeah, it takes a lot longer. Yeah, it holds less sway than a federal law. Then I would say, finally, if you pass a federal law, let's say that you decide that 9 weeks will be the limit, with exceptions for if the woman's life is in danger. Let's say you arbitrary limit, something like first trimester or whatever. It will immediately get attacked by every state that has a different system, both more and less lenient, by the way, and it'll go before SCOTUS all over again. Let the Democrats be the ones to bring it as a plaintiff. Let the Democrats do that, because they'll do what Democrats generally do. They will attempt to pass a federal law that makes unrestricted abortion legal everywhere. It'll be like the Northam-style thing. They'll have to. Most of those Democrats come from far blue districts that would support such a measure, in general, at least at the larger level. Or they'll have something like the 20-week limit. Well, half the states have a limit that's before that, and some states don't even have the 20-week limit in the general sense. There's basically a suggestion it'll be 20 weeks. Some states are more lenient, like Vermont, Maryland, and a few others. All of those people will be alienated. The Democrats will have an untenable, unnavigable position to take if they try to refederalize the issue. If the GOP makes the mistake of doing so after decades of saying it's a states' rights thing, no, I'm not arguing Jesus, I'm arguing Constitution. What the fuck? Don't even have the debate. Let the Democrats start it. Whoever starts the abortion debate back up after Roe v. Wade ends, instead of allowing it to be based primarily on the will of the constituencies of the different states, is going to pay a price for having done so. That's about all. Peace out.